Premier of Polish magazine Chollima, Dr. Dermot Hudson, Honorary Chairman of Korean Friendship Association United Kingdom. In this meeting, I would like to ask, I think, interesting things for Chollima listeners.
Right. Hello, dear listeners. I'm very glad to be here today with you.
Please tell me a few words. How did your adventure with KFA start?
In the early 1980s, I was a history student and a disillusioned member of the Communist Party of Great Britain. I became curious about people's career. A socialist country that was different to the rest. I tried to find information about the DPRK, but at first all I could find was a section on the DPRK in the book Marxist Regimes of the World. In 1985, I came across some books from the DPRK and the works of the great leader, Comrade Kim Il-sung, in a second-hand bookshop in the city of Southampton on the south coast. I was impressed by the Juche idea as a socialist idea and an idea that emphasizes national independence. I was deeply captivated by the Juche idea, and I noticed that Juche idea study groups had been set up all over the world. I was pretty appalled at the attitude of the British and Western left to the DPRK, which goes from bad to worse. I have never looked back since then. I set up a Juche Idea study group in 1985. I joined the old Korea Friendship Committee and later the Society with Friendship with Korea of the UK, but these were not so active. By chance, I came across the Korean Friendship Association on the internet and was deeply impressed with it, so I decided to join it. The KFA was very positive and militant, especially compared to some of the half-hearted organisations that supposedly supported the DPRK. KFA also made use of the internet. I came to know Alejandro Galdebenos, a very energetic man, quite fearless and prepared to call a spade a spade. I became official delegate of the KFA for the UK in spring of 2000, a position that I've held since then. I've come under attack from the media and was victimised by my fascistic state employer and was forced to take early retirement from work despite 25 years of service in order to continue my KFA work.
All right. Can you tell me how did you establish scientific cooperation with representative of the DPRK?
Well, at first, I just wrote letters directly to the DPRK. I first visited the DPRK in 1992, and then in 1993, 1994, and 1996. It was through these visits I established relations with the Korean Association of Social Scientists, the DPRK Committee for Cultural Relations with Foreign Countries, and the Korea Publications Exchange Association. In the 1990s, there was no DPRK embassy in London. We first had contact with the DPRK General Delegation to the UN Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization in Paris, France. Later, with the DPRK mission to the International Maritime Organization in London, and finally with the DPRK embassy in London from 2003.
All right. Uh, can you tell me how many books have you written and which one is the most valuable by you? And can you tell me why?
I've written a total of 20 books. It is hard to say which one is the most valuable to me. I think my favourites are Behind the Mirror of Lies, which was one of my first books, and also In Defence of Juche Korea and Korea of Juche. Behind the Mirror of Lies was written about 10 years ago with the aim of exposing false propaganda against the DPRK which is like a mirror that stops the people from seeing the reality of the DPRK. In defense of Juche Korea is about defending the reality of the DPRK and its reality as well as its ideology. Korea of Juche is a detailed explanation of the DPRK, its history, and its policies.
What do you like most about the DPRK? What is the most interesting for you there and why?
In a nutshell, I like the uniqueness of the DPRK, its original and authentic socialism, and its independence and national character. I like the fact that the DPRK is anti American and anti imperialist. It doesn't make compromises, it is upholding the banner of socialism. Visiting the DPRK, you will find it's very clean. There is no litter, there are no homeless people or beggars, no graffiti and vandalism, no drug addicts or prostitutes. It is a wholesome and ethical society without decadence. I can tell you a story about my last visit to the DPRK in October 2019. Coming back to London, I saw homeless people sleeping on the floor just outside Charing Cross Underground Station. In the DPRK, we did not see a single person sleeping on the streets or in the metro station. When I got home in London and went out for some fish and chips after walking only 5 minutes, I was accosted by a prostitute. The contrast between the two systems is a stark and graphic one. Visiting the DPRK, I see something new in the DPRK each time and learn something new. My favourite places are the Juche Idea Tower, the Pyongyang Metro, the Victorious Fatherland Liberation War Museum, and the Pyongyang mission of the anti-imperialist National Democratic Front of South Korea.
All right. What do you think about the current political, socio-economic situation of the DPRK?
The current situation in the DPRK is good, despite the lies of the imperialists and their media. The 8th Congress of the Workers' Party of Korea was held in January 2021 this year. It was a powerful demonstration of the single-hearted unity of the DPRK. Only People's Korea could hold such a Congress despite the COVID-19 pandemic. The Congress of the WPK was held at a time when Washington, the capital of the imperialist USA, experienced political violence between the Trump and Biden factions of the US ruling class. The Congress put forward a new 5-year plan based on the core concepts of self-reliance and self-development. The Congress also declared the USA is the principal enemy of the DPRK and the main obstacle to its development. Self-reliance works. The DPRK closed its border nearly 14 months ago and has survived when some countries could not survive a day with their borders shut. Last year, when the country was affected by floods and typhoons, respected Marshal Kim Jong-un saw to it that new homes to replace the damaged ones were built as quickly as possible and given to people free of charge, although the DPRK faced the toughest ever and most brutal sanctions by the US-led hostile forces. It is carried on with socialist construction. The WPK Congress pledged to fully eliminate anti-socialist and non-socialist practices from all walks of life, and the socialist lifestyle of the Korean people will be maintained. The second plenary meeting of the 8th Central Committee of the WPK emphasized this point, and DPRK mass organizations are carrying out a campaign to smash the anti-socialist and non-socialist influences. Under the programme unveiled at the 8th Congress of the WPK, people's living standards will be improved, more housing will be built. A target of building 10,000 new homes in Pyongyang per year was set, and also to build new homes elsewhere in the country. Efforts will also be put into improving conditions in rural areas and bringing them up to the standard of urban areas. Also, public transport and health will be further improved. The Pyongyang metro is to be upgraded and improved. It was announced that the production of trams, trains, trolleybuses, and buses will be stepped up. Ironically, Lankov, one of the NK News gang, claimed that the DPRK was going to scrap trolleybuses. NK News, wrong yet again. They are always wrong. There is no doubt that the 8th Congress of the Workers' Party of Korea will be a springboard for a new leap forward in building Juche-based socialism. The Korean people can look forward to a happier and prosperous life under the people first policies.
All right. So, what do you think is the biggest lie about DPRK and why?
The lies against people's career are on an industrial scale, and there are so many it is hard to choose one. I would pick two. Firstly, the idea of mass starvation. This first appeared in the 1990s, and I know South Korea had actually said things like that going back to the 1950s. Even today, you hear, oh, but they're all starving in North Korea. And recently, the tabloid media in Britain carried stories about starvation and famine in the DPRK. It is just nonsense, in fact, worse than nonsense. It is an insult to the DPRK and its socialist system. I've never seen starving people in the DPRK. There's nothing like it in the DPRK. You will see for yourself when you visit the DPRK. I visited the DPRK in 1996, supposedly, when there was a bad famine in the DPRK, but I did not see anyone begging or starving. In fact, the population of in the DPRK, according to United Nations statistics, actually increased in the 1990s rather than decreased. If all the stories about starvation in the DPRK were true, there would be hardly any people living in the DPRK today. There are also the lies about human rights violations, concentration camps, and prison camps. I've never seen a prison camp in the DPRK. In fact, several prison amnesties have been announced in the DPRK, including one last September. The imperialists claim that there are hundreds of thousands of people held in camps in the DPRK. Such camps would have to be massive and with a huge number of guards, but I did not see such a thing in the DPRK countryside. Moreover, the DPRK is very peaceful and calm. You rarely see emergency vehicles rushing through the busy streets. If what the imperialists said about human rights and forced labor camps in the DPRK was true, then you would see police or security personnel on the streets arresting many people and putting them in lorries to go to labor camps or concentration camps. But I saw no such thing happen. I did not see heavily armed police on the streets that you sometimes encounter in London, either at railway stations or airports. Indeed, I was able to walk near the Day Assembly Hall, the home of the DPRK Supreme People's Assembly, the highest organ of legislative power in the DPRK and roughly equivalent to the Parliament. Now, in London, the area around Parliament is a restricted area where movement is controlled and armed police units patrol. However, in Pyongyang, I saw no police or security personnel in the area surrounding the Mansi Day Assembly Hall. Of course, the DPRK is a stable and harmonious unified society based on single-hearted unity. So there is no terrorism and no riots. In the DPRK, there's unity between the armed forces and civilians. So people do not fear or despise the armed forces. People who go on about human rights violations in the DPRK never mention South Korea, the US, or the UK, and other capitalist countries. South Korea is one of the worst human rights violators, but the mainstream media keeps this a secret.
All right. What do you think about false information and news about DPRK and what they are caused by?
The answer is simple. Much misinformation comes from South Korean the South Korean puppet propaganda machine, which is then recycled by the Western mainstream media, or if you like, the bourgeois or imperialist media, who in some cases print stories which they know are untrue. Then you have shadowy outfits and think tanks that are closely linked to the CIA and the South Korean National Intelligence Service. One example is NK News, an internet based news service that is in fact includes on its staff former US and South Korean army officers. The head and founder of NK News, Chado Carroll, who worked for the CIA-linked Marshall Fund, had previously been writing on the so-called color revolutions in Libya, Tunisia, and other Middle Eastern countries, but suddenly was reinvented as a North Korea expert, in inverted commas. I'm not going to list every anti-DPRK outfit or organization, as they are many and various. Some, such as Cholson Exchange, even claim they're helping the DPRK by trying to restore capitalism there. However, I will just mention one more anti-DPRK outfit, which is known as Link or Liberty in North Korea. This is actively trying to recruit in UK university. On their website, it openly says that their revenue increased by 27%, but expenditure increased by 49%, a big gap. It is not hard to guess where the money for that shortfall is coming from. The CIA, the NIS, US multinationals, and wealthy right wingers in capitalist countries. The DPRK is demonized and vilified because it is a country upholding independence and socialism. To combat false information, the best way to join KFA is to join KFA and participate in our activities. Also, check out DPRK websites like KCNA, Nanara, Ryuyong Media, etc. And of course, the best way to refute anti DPRK misinformation is to visit the DPRK for yourself. Seeing once is better than hearing 100 times.
All right. Please say a few words about KFI in UK.
KFA UK is part of the worldwide Korean Friendship Association, which has over 17,000 members in the world. We do what it says on the tin and defend people's career with no ifs and buts. At the moment, our activities are online because of the lockdown, but we have many online meetings, and also our Facebook and Twitter pages are kept up to date.
What are your plans for the near future, some new book, journey, initiative?
Right. Okay. I'm, say, I hope to visit the DPRK in 2022 for the 110th anniversary of the birth of the great leader, Comrade Kim Il-sung. I hope to, if possible, to participate in the KFA international meeting in November. If the COVID-19 pandemic is over, I might also pay a visit to Ireland to help the Juche Idea study group there. I'm aiming to write a new book called The Great Conspiracy Against People's Korea.
All right. Well, is there anything you would like to ask, say, to Polish listeners of broadcast Chollima at the end of this interview?
I send my best regards to Polish friends of People's Korea. I've met several Polish people in the DPRK. Do not get fooled by the lies of the imperialists. Please study the truth about People's Korea. If you have the opportunity, please visit the DPRK and see it for yourself. Please get involved in KFA. Hopefully, we can see the emergence of a new, strong KFA branch in Poland. Study the Juche Idea. It will cost you nothing, but pay in plenty. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for the interview, and we wish you much success in your work for the deepening of the friendship with Korea and your personal life. Thank you very much.
Thank you for interviewing me. Thank you.
All right, you can stop now. I cannot stop. I don't know why. Maybe